So Plarium's got a long history of doing stuff we don't like and doing stuff that's not good. And there's some talk. If you haven't seen Smiley's video yet, Smiley is actually the one that talked to me about this before he uploaded the video. And I had not really given it enough thought to reach the conclusion that he had, because I don't take the game as seriously as I used to, right? I'm not as heavily invested in like playing the game the way that I used to, right? I'm pretty casual in my approach these days. But so for me, the gear ascension thing was like, yeah, fine. It kind of seemed like the next logical progression in their advancement of the game was some sort of additional thing on top of gear. So adding the ascension feature for gear seemed reasonable. And that's kind of as much thought as I gave it, right? Whatever. So he hollers at me and he's like, hey, I think this is the worst thing they've ever done. And I'm like, that's a big claim. That is a big claim in the world of Plarium. And he kind of made his case and told me what he thought, and it makes a lot of sense. I think we definitely have a contender here. And I think there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So his point is, if you haven't seen it yet, I'll briefly summarize a portion of it, but it is worth watching his whole video just to hear the other points of it and hear from a top platinum player, someone who is taking the game very seriously, someone who is still spending a lot of money. His perspective is important if you have not considered this yet. So definitely check out his video. It'll be linked below. But one of the big aspects is that basically what it's done is it's taken the 3 years or so of gear farming everyone has done, and now with a single click, you can ruin a piece. For example, if you've got some really nice 6-star speed boots and you ascend them and it rolls flat attack, well, now you're screwed. You know what I mean? If you don't get that speed roll, now that piece is not a top piece anymore. You can with one click take what was your best piece of gear and turn it into no longer even a contender for your best piece of gear. And this might not seem like it matters outside of the top players, outside of, the high end of platinum, where, every single point of speed matters and every single point of this matters, and where it's all so min-maxed and crucial. But I think it does kind of apply to everybody in one way or another. And I think another important part of it is, I don't know if I actually have the advanced quest today, but occasionally in your advanced quests now, you will see ascend a piece of gear. And that's problematic, I think, as well, because it is a very hard dungeon. I haven't even, other than the day it came out and we jumped in and did our one run, I haven't been back in here yet. I am getting to a point where I'm about ready to jump in here and start playing around with it, because I do think it's an interesting dungeon. I do think it's going to be fun to put teams together. I just haven't made my way to it yet. So I don't know actually how difficult it's going to be to farm. I'm sure we can put together a team that's going to be able to do a few stages. I anticipate getting somewhere around here when I actually start to try to do it. But it's still tough, and I think for a while, a lot of players are going to struggle to have any kind of success in there. So adding it to the advanced quest, I think, was not a good move. And now, again, I'm not going to talk so much about the merit of the impact on the game, because again, I'm playing a little bit more casually these days, and I'm not as bothered by it on a personal note. What I'm interested in at this point is what Plarium is thinking, what Plarium is doing, and what Plarium is thinking, because I feel like it's been well established, especially in the last couple of months, where their energy lies, where their priority lies. I mean, we know their priorities, but I mean, they made it kind of crystal clear that they just don't give a fuck about the player base. And I think that's really hard to dispute. If you look at their track record, they've just made it kind of clear they are not bothered by the player base. They are bothered by new players. But the existing player base, it seems as though they've tried intentionally to make it clear they're not really concerned with the player base. That being said, I look at some of the things they're doing, and it is confusing. For example, the new Doom Tower update, where you have auto progress through the stages. I know it's a little buggy right now and some people are having trouble with it, but I've been using it. It's been working fine for me. And they'll eventually work the bugs out of it, and it'll just be a new quality of life feature that we have. And I look at that and I think, what are they gaining from doing that? It's not paywalled, surprisingly. It doesn't cost an extra resource. It's just an attempt at pure quality of life. And whether or not it's good enough or not is not what I'm talking about. I just think it's interesting to see them do something that is just pure quality of life when I feel like they've made their attitude so clear. Why are they still implementing quality of life changes to the game? You know what I mean? That feels confusing to me. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I feel like, I don't know, I'm just very confused by that. It seems obvious, again, that they don't care about the player base as a whole, and that they don't really care about the quality of the game. Which I know is a loaded statement. But if they really cared about the quality of the game, there are so many other things that they should be doing. So many other things they're being told are problems. And we know they can do it quickly, because the Nogdar thing recently, they fixed immediately, and the content creators were in the content creator chat like, how did you guys fix this so quickly? And there's things we've been telling you about for a year you still haven't addressed. Like, why are you so uninterested in fixing some of the things that need fixing, or improving some of the things that need improving? So it's weird, all the stuff that gets set on the back burner, and then this Doom Tower thing. So I don't know if it's something they added in so that they can be like, you can't say we're not doing anything, because here it is. It's hard to imagine they really want to make the game solid in all aspects, because again, there's so many places it's falling short that they're not addressing. I'm also a little conflicted here about this being bad, not this, about this dungeon, about the implementation of this system. This is one of the few times that they've implemented something that is bad, that part of me wants to wonder if they really didn't know it was going to be this bad. If they really thought this was just something they were doing. They should have known, for sure, but they've displayed themselves to be fairly incompetent. So I'm a little more interested in, did they know what they were doing here? Did they realize this was going to ruin a lot of people's gear situation that they've been working on for 3 years? Or did they really just think this was the next nice thing to add to the game, and it did not occur to them the problems it was going to bring? So now I guess what we'll have to do is wait and see what they do next, because I feel like there are probably some solutions to this. One of them is for sure a reroll system. I think that's an easy first thing to do. It still does just add more RNG, and it's going to add another resource that they very likely will paywall or make very difficult to get. So I don't know. It's kind of messy. It's kind of a messy situation, and the more that I've listened to Smiley talk about what he thinks about it, the more I kind of see what he's saying, in that this is some real. There is some real game killing potential with this one. And it doesn't feel that big on the surface, but when you talk about someone who has spent $50,000 in the game, you know, some of these insane whales that have just gone nuts, which there are quite a few of in Raid, who've been playing the game for 3 years, who have all this amazing gear, who now can potentially ruin that gear with one click. I think that's going to suck a lot of fun out of the game. And Also, too, when does it ever seem like they've intentionally implemented a system that is just negative? Like overwhelmingly negative for the whales. You know what I mean? It's hard to think that they did that on purpose. But this is going to suck a lot of the fun out of the gear system in the game, because now on top of how hard it is and how long it takes to farm gear at the highest level and actually get solid usable pieces, now you've got another stage of very intense RNG that potentially ruins the piece as the game continues to scale based on this system. And that is a very big problem. So I think they're going to have to come up with a solution to this probably pretty quick, because I think a lot of people, I think a good percentage of the player base is going to be bothered enough by this to really start thinking about quitting at a time when there's already plenty of people either quitting or thinking about quitting. And I think that's only going to get worse unless they address it. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they receive this feedback, because historically they'll do a thing every now and then where they pretend like they listen to feedback, like the CVC personal reward thing that they were going to do every one of them in December. They're like, you know, we were going to do this, but we're so flexible based on your feedback, so we're changing. They do that shit occasionally to pretend like they listen to feedback, but they really don't ultimately listen to feedback. So we'll see what kind of impact it has when you've got players like Smiley and Mac Chan chiming in to the degree that they are, because generally speaking, I don't see Mac Chan chat very much in the content creator chat. So the fact that this is important enough for him to feel like he needs to say something to them about it seems significant. And the same with Smiley. Smiley very rarely feels like this. He generally rolls with the punches fairly well and is not bothered by the stupid and shitty things Plarium does. And he feels very strongly about this one. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what kind of impact it has and how they receive the feedback and if they do anything with it. Because again, I had not really considered it until I listened to Smiley talk about it and then also watched his video. He makes some very interesting points. You know what I mean? There's a such thing as too much RNG. And this is it. This is the perfect example of too much RNG. It's way too hard to get a good piece that rolls well, that has good subs, where the sub stats roll well. And then now you've got to do it again to try to escalate the piece. And if it doesn't roll well, then you're just screwed. There's no way to fix it right now. So at the very least, there needs to be an undo or some sort of reroll system, some sort of insurance in place that's going to save a piece of gear. It's a real bummer to ruin your best pieces of gear. Smiley talked about his best new pieces of gear now are rare pieces, because they're the ones that happen to get an appropriate main stat on the Ascension. So I don't know, I guess that's it. I just wanted to chat with you guys a little bit about it, because I thought it was interesting. And it hadn't really occurred to me until, again, chatting with Smiley a little bit about it. So again, I'm going to link his video below. Make sure you go check it out. And then I'm interested to know where you guys are at with this one. What do you think about it? How does it affect you? What stage of the game are you in? How does it affect you? Do you have any ideas about a solution? Do you like the system? Do you not like the system? Are you indifferent? I was fairly indifferent. You know what I mean? I didn't particularly care. I definitely understand the problems with it now, though. So that's it. I'm very, very interested where all you guys are at with this one, and thought I would jump into the conversation, because it's one of the more interesting situations in Raid in a while. You know what I mean? I think this is one of those things that I think there's going to be a lot of different opinions, and I think they're all going to, not all, but I think there's room for a lot of very different valid opinions on this one. So I'm interested to hear them. So that's it. I'm getting out of here. Let me know what you guys think.